Ladies and gentlemen, I can fix the handball rule with one piece of information and a question. If I tell you there were 8,195 fouls committed in the Premier League last season, how many handballs were there? The answer is 305. And if you guessed anything close to that, then congrats to you. You get no prizes and you ruined the premise of this intro. But the idea here is handballs don't actually happen. They never happen. You are almost just as likely to see a handball as you are to see somebody hit the post in a game. In the Premier League last season, there were 0.8 handballs a game, and the ball hit the post 0.7 times a game. It's almost the same. That is how rare a handball actually is. My argument basically is that there should be no handball penalties unless it is absolutely deliberate. And I hate when we talk about these things as if we don't know what a deliberate handball is. We know exactly what a deliberate handball is. Nobody saw Maradona hit the ball with his hand and was like, oh, I don't know, if maybe he did it on accident. Nobody saw Suarez bat the ball off the line or Oxlade-Chamberlain do it and say, oh, maybe he did it on accident. There is no confusion when a ball is handled deliberately. There's no confusion about that. In every sport, there are body parts that you're not allowed to use, okay? But we are the only sport that treats it as if the apocalypse has started. We're the only sport that goes, oh my God, he touched the ball with his hand. That's it. We have to completely change the flow of this game. To illustrate this point, last season in the Premier League, an average game had 2.85 goals. A penalty over the course of Premier League history has been scored 85% of the time. Which means giving a handball penalty is basically giving 0.85 of a goal. That's 30% of the total goals scored in an average Premier League game last season. To put that in context, in basketball, you can't kick the ball. Obviously, it's called the kickball violation. Cool. We give handball penalties that result in 30% of the average goals scored in a game. If you took that to the NBA, they would be giving 68 free throws every time the ball hits somebody's leg. Do you see the insanity in that? We're the only sport that does this. No other sport treats a body part like this. We treat it as if that's it. The game has completely fundamentally changed if the ball hits somebody's arm. It hasn't. We're the only sport that does this. And what annoys me, what frustrates me the most about these plays is that when a foul is committed in the penalty box and a penalty is given for it, you get one of two reactions. You either think, man, that was really stupid from the defender, or man, that was brilliant from the attacker to draw that contact. He did something smart. He dribbled. He did something to draw that contact. When it's a handball, there's nothing. There's nothing but, shucks. Well, it happens. Well, what can you do? What kind of play is that? What kind of play is that? What play in sports is like that? Well, No. No decisions were made in 99.9% of handball penalties given. There is not a decision being made to result in this call. The player who kicks the ball this past week, Rafael Leao shot the ball, hit the Sanitana's defender's arm, and it should have been a penalty, and it wasn't given by the current set of rules, right? Leao didn't shoot. It wasn't brilliance from Leao to shoot and hit his hand. And it wasn't really a mistake from the defender to have his arm out like here. It's not. There is no decision. Neither the player who commits it, nor the player who draws the foul. There's no real decision making to get that penalty. It's a completely luck-based call. We're the only sport that does this. To give you the raw stats, the big picture, let's say. Last season, again in the Premier League, I say the Premier League many times in this video because it's the easiest stats to get. Last season, there were 98 penalties in the Premier League, 24 of them being for handball, right? Total, there were 8,195 fouls, as we said earlier in the video, and there was 305 handballs. Put that together, that's a beautiful round number of 8,500. Fouls plus handballs, 8,500. Handballs, of that total number, handballs represent 3.6% of that total number. But they represent 24% of the penalties that are given. Again, we are giving these game and season and era-defining decisions based on a play that almost never happens. It is a ridiculous rule. And I think nothing illustrates the ridiculousness of this rule than reading it. Go back. I went back to IFAB, the International Football Association Board. I went back and I read every single rule that they had about the handball since 1990. The progression of the handball rule has gone from about 1990 to 2007. The rule is basically about deliberately handling the ball. And specifically, it's written in the rule, if the ball strikes the defender on the hand accidentally, no offense is committed. That's literally written in the law. Now, I don't know if that's how it was actually adjudged. I haven't gone back and watched a million penalties from the 90s. But the letter of the law says accidentally, accidental handballs means no offense is committed. That's why we still to this day hear the words intention, deliberate, all these kind of things. We still hear them in commentary because they existed. It was a factor in these handball decisions back in the day. In 2007, it changed. The wording started becoming deliberate act. A handball had to be a deliberate act. Again, still kind of factoring the intention, right? Then, in 2019, all that changed. In 2019, they changed it from the intention, the deliberation. They took all that out of it and made more specific. What are more specific things that don't have to do with intent that can result in a handball? The two main points became that it is a penalty if your arm makes your body bigger. If you have your arm out here, your body is suddenly all the way out there, right? And that the whole natural and unnatural position, one thing that was specifically specified is that when the arm is above shoulder height, it is very rarely natural position, including when the player is sliding. So that's a very important distinction. Including when the player is sliding, if their arm is above their shoulder height, they basically claimed that was still, in their words, the player is taking a risk in that situation, and therefore could still be liable for a handball. Well, here's Marcos Llorente. This weekend, all my examples are recent. This weekend, Marcos Llorente slid. His arm did not make his body too much larger. And specifically, to use their wording, his arm was not above shoulder height while he was sliding. His arm was not above shoulder height while he was sliding. And still, he was given a penalty in the 94th minute to take 2 points away from Atletico Madrid. Fundamentally changing the entire flow of the game and the entire flow of Atleti's season. These are the kind of decisions we're seeing. These rules and interpretations had exceptions. These are the exceptions that were written in the 2019-2020 laws of the game. The exceptions are that one, if the ball deliberately strikes the player on another body part, head or body, and then strikes their arm, that's no longer a penalty. So again, hits your body, hits your arm, not a penalty. Again, recent example. Newcastle against PSG. Here, ball hits the body clearly in a quote-unquote natural position, natural action. He's running, his arm's ahead, hits his body naturally, hits his arm. No penalty by the letter of the law. That's not a penalty. And yet it was given. It was scored. It changed Newcastle's season. Hell, it changed Milan's season because we would have qualified if Newcastle had won that game. If all other things stood. Again, changing the complete Champions League season. Just off of that one decision, which went against the letter of the law. Another exception is if another player, is the proximity. If the other player is so too close to you and it hits their body and then it hits your arm, then it's all cool. And then last, you have if a player is falling. Now, this part I wasn't really planning on having in this video. Or this part I didn't have an example for in this video. But then, God dropped one right in front of me. This is the letter of the law. This is the Odegaard situation that we just saw against Liverpool. Okay? This is the letter of the law. if a player falls and their arm is between the body and the ground to support their body, then it's not a penalty. But if their arm is extended laterally or vertically away from their body, then it is. And I don't know what else. That's Odegaard's arm is quote unquote. Now I'm not agreeing with this rule. This rule is absurd. It's terribly worded. But Odegaard's arm is vertically away from his body. I don't even think he's really falling. So but let's say that's what we're saying. Let's say we're judging him to have fallen. His arm is vertically away from his body, and it hits the ball. It's a penalty. It is a penalty, not given. And again, this insane rule and the way it's worded, the ref has to decide all this in 30 seconds, and the VAR room has to decide all this in 30 seconds. It took me 3 reads of this rule to figure out what the hell was going on. And I give you another example. Tomori last season in the Champions League against Napoli. Again, he's falling. He's falling backwards. He has his arm to support his body. The ball hits his arm. He is falling. Again, his arm is vertically away from his body. I agree with that. The penalty was given. That, by the letter of the law, is true. Is a good penalty. But again, one application here, another application here, and nobody at any time has any idea what the differences of these things are. Not the refs, not the fans, not the coaches. That's why they're complaining and bitching and moaning nonstop. Not the players. Certainly not the players. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what intent is anymore. Nobody knows what natural position is anymore. Nobody knows what making their body bigger is anymore. They have completely convoluted every single facet of the handball rule to the point that nobody knows what the hell's going on. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. It is a completely and fundamentally broken rule that should be fundamentally changed. And actually, my change is not that radical. All I'm saying is let's not have penalties for these things. All I'm saying is let's revert to the letter of the law before 2007. The letter of the law used to be, if a handball was accidental, it was not an offense. And I'm not saying that that's how it was applied back then. But if we applied it to the letter of the law, that concept, that would give us a much better game. There's no reason to continue ruining games with these ridiculous offenses that nobody understands and that are completely subjective and that change from game to game. They completely ruin games. Well, if anybody's made it this far, thank you for watching. Yes, we've changed the setup and hopefully I'll have new things. Everybody can say goodbye to the map, which is no longer in view. And yeah, thanks for watching.